Why do emotionally unavailable men always seem to know when you finally moved on from them, and just when you're feeling great and free of them, they send you a text saying, "Hey, how's it going?" and you get sucked back in again. This back and forth dynamic is brutal, and you can waste years of your life hung up on someone that pushes you away and then reels you back in again. I'll explain why they're doing this and how you can move on from them for good. Like my client Amy, who learned how to finally move on from her ex after he kept treating her this way, and now she no longer engages when he reaches out, because she's learned to fully let go and just be present with herself and her life. That kind of peace, clarity, and freedom is what I am passionate about helping my clients achieve. And if you'd like to get to this place, I would love to speak with you on a call so we can discuss how I can help you. You can book a call with me in the calendar link below. So let's look at this incessant push-pull dynamic with emotionally unavailable men. You were in some kind of relationship or situationship with a guy who turned out to be emotionally unavailable. The relationship finally ended and you've been on a healing journey. Why is it that when you've finally gotten over them and you've healed, that they come back? They're sending you a text or a phone call, asking how you are, and maybe even acting like they want you back. Or perhaps they just want enough of your attention to feel that they still have access to you. Now, if you had genuine feelings for this person, this can drive you crazy, because what often happens is when they come back, all the healing that you think you've done goes out the window. Then eventually they pull away again and you're left heartbroken. And then you're just caught in this crazy endless cycle where you're accepting breadcrumbs and never fully getting what you want. This is a really common pattern between two people that have attachment wounds, because it's not only an issue that you attracted an emotionally unavailable guy who seemed great at the start, but a couple of months or maybe a year later, you realize he's not emotionally available. The other side is, why do you seem to only attract and let these kinds of people in? We'll cover that as well, but firstly, let's look at why they keep coming back. When an emotionally unavailable man is in the early stages of dating, he's putting his best foot forward. It may seem like he'll be a great partner, and you might feel like you finally met your match. It can seem like a whirlwind, and you might think to yourself, wow, I've finally met my person. Now, the way he's attaching to you, though, isn't as deep or as significant as you think or as he's letting on, because people that are emotionally unavailable don't have the capacity to bond deeply with their partners over a period of time. They often have short-term, exciting relationships that fizzle out when any kind of deeper emotion happens, because that is actually scary for them. They're not used to deeper emotions, and it can scare them away. So when someone's emotionally unavailable, they're actually cut off from engaging in deeper emotions, because those emotions are unsafe for them and for their body. They're probably not aware of it, but that's what's going on. So a superficial connection, on the other hand, is safe for them because it doesn't allow them to get hurt. As soon as the connection starts to get deeper, or there's potential for more responsibility, they pull back, and you're left thinking, I thought we were moving towards a healthy relationship. I thought things were great. And then almost suddenly overnight, you see a different version of them, and you realize the version of the person you thought you were falling for isn't who he actually is. He's been wearing a mask this whole time, and he's probably unaware of it too. Now, emotionally unavailable people are really good at the first few months or even year of a relationship, because that is the part they're well practiced at. They've probably never gone beyond that if they're chronically emotionally unavailable. In that kind of superficial connection, you might notice some red flags, but you're enjoying the relationship in general. Things feel great, organic, and fluid, and you excuse those red flags, right? They don't seem significant early on, because when it's good, it's really good. That's one of the hardest things about these kinds of relationships with people who can't love deeply. The fun times are great. And emotionally unavailable people are motivated by fun and by dopamine, because they can't experience the deeper bonds of long-term committed relationship and the chemicals that go with that. They can only focus on the excitement in the relationship, and the chase excites them, and you'll feel really wanted by them. In the early stages, you might even hold back a little bit. You're trying to go slow, and that makes them chase you even more. And that's the kind of dynamic that an emotionally unavailable person thrives in. The early stages, the chase, the excitement. Now, I'm just speaking from experience, because I used to be emotionally unavailable. And when I look back, I see that I was a less mature version of who I am now. I was driven by excitement and sometimes just interested in someone for the experiences. I was thinking of wanting a relationship, but I wasn't truthful to myself that I didn't have the emotional skills to develop a long-term relationship at the time. All I could see was a pattern of leapfrogging from relationship to relationship and I didn't know why. And there's nothing wrong with having fun, except that I wasn't being truthful to myself or the other person, and I hurt people along the way. So know that when you're involved with someone who's emotionally unavailable, know that they're kind of using you for the excitement, the chase, and they might not be aware of it. And they might not intentionally be trying to do it, but this is just all they know. This leads directly into why they keep coming back. After things have ended, maybe they hooked up with someone else and you're trying to get over the devastation. And as you heal over time, you turn back into the person that they want to chase again because you're over them. Before, when you were heartbroken, your intense feelings were probably triggering and repelling them. But as you heal, you're not needing them or wanting them anymore. And that sets up the kind of dynamic that attracts them again, where they can win you over again and they can experience that same high. You've kind of turned into a lure for them again. And this sets the stage for them to test the waters with you. Now, this is where they come back. They send you a text or a phone call. And I've had test the water phone calls, texts, and even letters on my car windshield. They just want to see if the door is open and if they can get their foot in the door. If you let them get their foot in the door, it's over. You'll let them back in, they'll reject you again, you'll go through the entire cycle again. Now, this is the key. If an emotionally unavailable guy is trying to come back, you have to make sure that he cannot put his foot in the door. When you let him in, you're allowing it. That is on you. And I mean, if you want to engage in the cycle and have fun, go for it, but don't expect a different outcome than the first time. If you do want a different outcome, it's your responsibility to protect your space with boundaries. And if you can't, know that there's something in you that's keeping the door open. So why do you keep letting them back in? Often when you've fallen hard for someone who's emotionally unavailable, the reason you've fallen for them isn't because they're your soulmate or twin flame. You might be thinking that or reading about it, but it's actually because the dynamic replicates an earlier memory of love you had with a parent or primary caregiver. If you had a parent who was emotionally unavailable, you'll have early memories in your body of feeling that love isn't abundantly available. It's scarce, it's inconsistent, and these live in your body as core attachment wounds. Instead of realizing that it's a core wound that's being triggered by someone inconsistent and unreliable, you think that's what love is, that it's going to be inconsistent and a back and forth dynamic. You're not aware that your core wound is being triggered because you think this is love. Now, if you have unresolved core attachment wounds, including feelings of unworthiness, they're going to play out in your relationships. So one of my beliefs was that no one would ever love me the way that he can. You might think that this is a romantic sentiment, but it's actually scarcity and a trauma response from your earliest relationships. Now, someone who's emotionally unavailable, I believe, can sense unresolved wounds in you, and they will test the waters, and before you know it, their foot is in the door because something in you is triggered, causing you to keep the door open, thinking maybe this time it'll be different, or maybe he's changed, let's just see. But you're far better off starting with a clean slate with someone else than trying to fix a broken connection. Let's say he has healed, you get back together, there's just going to be so much baggage from your past to wade through. Who has time for that? Who has the emotional capacity for that? Just find someone new who's healed. And you can't be fully available for someone new if you are still holding the door open for someone from your past. So let's just for a minute put yourself in the shoes of someone who's emotionally unavailable so you can understand it better. This kind of person doesn't have the capacity to go deep in relationship and to sustain a long-term relationship that's got responsibilities, that requires emotional honesty, truthfulness, and primarily being truthful to yourself. If you just don't have those skills, you are going to be bouncing from relationship to relationship, or maybe being in a relationship and cheating on that person because you need that dopamine. And those relationships are going to last for as long as it takes to have the fun times with them until things get really real. And then you have to leave because it's unfamiliar territory. It's scary. You don't feel safe when there are bigger emotions because you didn't learn how to process big emotions when you were younger. So you just leave that person and go find your next person. Often emotionally unavailable people struggle to be alone because they are cut off from themselves and their own company. They don't have the depth and capacity to be on their own, so they need connection with others to make up for this. So they're always seeking new connections to avoid being on their own. Now, like I said, I'm speaking simply as someone who was emotionally unavailable and cut off from my own emotional experience. It was incredibly lonely, and I was always seeking new connections, new relationships in order to not have to deal with being on my own. So chances chances are, if he's coming back to you and testing the waters, he's probably also testing the waters with the last 2, 3, or 4 previous connections as well. It's like fishing. He's casting out a few lines to see who bites, and all it takes is a "hey, how are you" text, and he can just see which one bites and see if he can get his foot in the door. So the only way you can have a healthy relationship and be available for this is to not let them get their foot in the door. That can involve setting boundaries, from saying "I'm not available to be in communication with you anymore," to something more extreme like blocking them. Now, often there's this idea that you'll stay friends with them, but if they've really hurt you, it's really not a good idea. It leaves a part of you with them that doesn't allow you to be available for someone else. And in my case, the last time I fell for someone emotionally unavailable, I set strong boundaries. I told them verbally, "I'm just not available to be in contact with you while I'm healing." And I thought they understood that because they verbally told me so, that they would respect it. But lo and behold, they didn't. He reached out to me by text, and I made the mistake of picking up the conversation again. We went on for another couple of weeks. Then I realized things were just going to be exactly the same, so I cut it off again and made the decision to block him because he didn't respect my boundary the first time around, so I couldn't trust him to not reach out again. A few weeks later, when he realized he was blocked, he found me on social media and messaged me there. I thought, how many places do I need to block this guy for him to get the message? By that time, I'd had enough space and I left the message unread. It popped up, but I didn't read it properly, and I just moved on with my life. And then the last fishing expedition from them came 6 months later with a phone call that I did not answer. I'd unblocked him, but I didn't fall for it because this time I was just completely moved on. So really consider what it's going to take for you to protect your space. How soon after the breakup are you? What your needs are around healing at the moment. Do you trust them when you ask them to not contact you? As a general rule, I err on the side of caution and assume that they won't respect your boundary because emotionally unavailable people who make promises often break them. They sometimes don't have the strong integrity or character, so they take what they say with a grain of salt and make the necessary adjustments, whether that means blocking them or something else. Like I said, I even had a letter left on my car windscreen. So you can't entirely block them from reaching out, but you can do your best to try. The most important thing is to never open the door. Keep it closed. If you hear any knocking or any experience of any fishing expeditions, remain silent. Silence is the best way to handle things, but it's going to be really hard if your heartstrings are being tugged when he reaches out, and that happens if you haven't healed your own wounds. You do need to heal in order to attach healthily. And I'm not saying you have to be completely healed to get into a healthy relationship, not at all, but to stop yourself from going back to someone who has historically proven that they can't build a healthy relationship with you, it's a really good idea to start your healing journey. Now, this is what I do inside Heal Your Heart School, so if you want to know more about that journey and how I can help you, book a free consultation call with me, the link in my calendar below. Meanwhile, here are some next step videos for you to watch so you can move one step closer to having a healthy and healed relationship to yourself and break those old patterns. And for now, I will see you in the next video.